Good coffee. I like. Can you tell I like coffee? I'm a mocha man myself. How's everybody doing? I'm Tomlin's Nyback. This is 365 Days Towards Racial Change. We're at day 288. The grind. Yeah. Into the last quarters of our game here. And the ball's been tossed back and forth. Uh, as we've come through, trying to stay excited and on fire, motivated about who we are, wherever we land in America. White male, white female, gay, black, Hispanic. I think I've talked to just all groups, religions, Christianity, Judaism, Muslims, whatnot, because, America, the idea is aggressive and touches any and all iterations of human existence. It's just that the nation is sluggish and slow in its implementation of its own creed. And from that, um, history shows us uh, a lot of people scrambling, you know. History's been pointed. I mean, look at labor, even. Well, we don't always have to go to the 60s to see how the power group, essentially white male, um, frustrates the movement and intentions of a disadvantaged group. You know, no, we don't want to work 7 days, 12 hours a day. Um, Everybody wants to self-determine. That's in my mind, and it's interesting. What would I do if I was on the side of privilege and opportunities um, that were almost forbidden to other aspects of society and the rest of the world? Would I have a heart for the disadvantaged and marginalized people of the world? Maybe. You can't say no, because I know some people personally who, for whatever means, whatever way, are in that group of the privileged and have opportunities and stuff like that. But these are some of my friends. They are not the kind of people to revel and be shameless, even in their ability to exercise freedom, privilege, self-determine their lives, right? That they have some consciousness about that. It's not wrong. It's not an indictment. You still live happily, but I mean, there are other people in the privileged class who are, you down right. I'm glad I was born on this side of the fence. Thank you. Or arrived here. And yeah, too bad for you over there. You're in the disadvantaged section. What do you want from me? You know, you have the people. A white supremacist would have that mind, right? That they are a master race, Aryans, and stuff like that, and that's God made it this way. Get over it. It would be their attitude. Um, so America, but you see, America has has its challenges. I'm beginning to think and argue that the Constitution, our Constitution, the document that describes America and how it functions, and like documents, never America's never been implemented, is what I'm trying to say. It's not like that the document. I'm thinking further. It's not that the document um, is not efficient in uh, its vision and things like that. It's that the power group, that's lip service so that the power group can look like they're doing right um, by other groups in America. But the power group is kind of it's they use it as a shield and stuff, and if a disadvantaged group makes enough noise about it, has marches and protests and gets to the streets and whatnot, then the power group goes and deliberates, and they come out with a new plan, an amendment or whatever, like, oh, we forgot to give women the right to vote. Oh, we sorry about that. Oh, of course black people are competent enough to vote. Well, I'm sorry we missed that. Come on, man. I won't go on to that. I like to free form it a little before we get into our study. And how are black folks doing? Do you care about this material? Do you understand my argument over these past now 288 days that I've been jawing and stuff? Um, because I don't see it. Now, granted, I've kind of withdrew from society. I'm trying to finish I'm working on, I will finish a philosophy, get a bachelor's in philosophy, and that's changing my mind. Taking some time off out of society, but I have this opportunity where I've gotten some elbow room, and do black people understand that maybe a need for that, to withdraw, come out from your situation the best you can. I know you can't always withdraw. I've been on this convoluted, circuitous route in life, and I, I've always wanted to have this opportunity. I had a good friend of mine ask, you know, what informs me? Where do I get this idea to be contemplative and um, meditative about issues and things? And I say, I don't have no idea. It did not come from my family. It does not, I was not exposed to black people in my life who encourage deep thought and reflection. That's not the norm, not for my family, peers, anything like that. Um, I was exposed to a very different way and lived it hard, best I could. It's what the model was. Never quite fit, though. If you're black and you understand what we've been talking about for 288 days, first off, hats to you. That's 100 and at least a minimum 144 hours you and I have been together. That's quite a piece of time right there. Significant investment. But hopefully you understand my argument, my angst, issues, difficulties, and whatnot. Because black people do need to make a change. And what I encourage you to do as well, search some channels, other, race-related social media, whatever, and see what the message is about being black. You know, you know, are we cursed to always be so uptight about this haves and have-nots, right? Because we're in general the have-nots. That's part of the issue, right? A lot of things to talk about there. Financial literacy. I'm saying this, I'm preaching this to myself as much as to you, but it's important because money is how America works. I wouldn't be here. I don't think I'd be here talking about this if money were not an issue. Like if if my skin color was mutually exclusive to my economic condition, if they were two mutually exclusive things where my economic issue is elevated, money's coming in, whatever, but I'm discriminated against and marginalized, I think I could live that life. Yeah, whatever. I could still function and maneuver because I got money, you know. Um, but skin color in America and economics, they're bound, they're interlaced tightly too, grip, right? And they are together. They don't have a buoyancy. They don't have economic and social buoyancy in the land. They're weightier. Like you get a nice large rock and drop it into a pond, it sinks straight to the bottom. That's skin color and economics, right? It's going to take a lot of energy to keep that afloat. So you want to be mindful, be careful, you know, because the system is so okay with you throwing money at it for you being the consumer class, right? Well, that's just like, I mean, we're already working in a plantation of sorts, and then we've got to spend too much of our money just to live peaceably, to have some space, and now we're, throwing money at all these other white systems and stuff, and they give us stuff, but they're not reciprocating allegiances, hard work, education. They're just giving us enough so that it appears we have a semblance of freedom, which is not the truth. The better off, the better you can maneuver economically, the better idea you'll have of true freedom in America. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claud Anderson. I've read 3 of his works. We're in his book today. If you want to pause and go get it, if you've got some of his works, we're in a Black History Reader, question 59. And it's Dr. Claud Anderson, a Black History Reader, 100 on questions you never thought to ask. Black labor, white wealth, search for power and economic justice, and Dr. Anderson's national plan to empower Black America. Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Behind me, you see the hashtag #us2 symbol. That's find Black women coming together, having a conversation, supporting one another. Check out Blog Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a Black Facebook experience. If you have an entrepreneurial mind, go see Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School. He's got some excellent products there, which is true. I haven't really taken advantage. I guess I don't have an entrepreneurial mind, but I'm all for blacks doing well in business. That's one of the big points to bring a solution in general for black folks in all through Dr. Anderson's work is that we have that blacks have an economic center. Whites, we already know whites have it, but you'll find new groups coming to America: Arabs, Hmong, Vietnamese, all the Asians, Chinese and stuff, Japanese. They do business in their group and grow from there. They're not in a rush in any way. And we're finishing off. We're putting some finishing touches on our thoughts about Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe's work. And back to that economic thing about other groups coming here, doing well and growing and things like that. I want to add that Hispanics are in that or a group as well. Not only are they tend towards exclusivity in their economics, trading with their own, but they have the common thread that runs through their philosophy, economic philosophy, is they're okay to wait. They're okay if they're the generation that has to sacrifice, that never gets, as long as they are pouring resources into the next generation. Hopefully the next generation will take that example and run with it, right? And what I'm saying is a slow process. They're not people, there are people who are going to get the group to elevate. They don't want superstars shooting up, here and there and stuff like that. It's very kind of spiky type of progression, but you'll see more of a group dynamic happening in their growth, economically especially. All right, we're in question 59, a Black History Reader. And this is good, apropos for Uncle Tom's Cabin. I think I picked this book up because as I read through Dr. Anderson's work, he mentioned the book and stuff. I heard of the book and glad I got the book and stuff, and like that. The question is, did Uncle Tom's Cabin really exist? And if so, what happened to it? And the answer is yes and all that. We're going to get to that in a second. But I mean, the story, the themes through the book, I'm sure that was common for slavery America, right? So yeah, not only do we have facts about an actual Uncle Tom's Cabin, but cabins, lean-tos, barns where black folks congregated are real anyway. We that's no surprise that blacks were in spaces. Now this is up in Maryland. We're talking, um, which is it's a four-walled space and stuff like that. But I wonder how many black slaves had it that good in slavery America. All right. With our time left, let's get to it. Now, Uncle Tom's Cabin is modeled after a man named Josiah Henson. He belonged to a man named Isaac Riley. And around 1794, Josiah Henson was sold to a man named Adam Robb in Maryland. But Josiah got sick and all that, and stayed sickly. So he was returned to Isaac Riley. And, you wonder why Isaac Riley sold him in the first place, why it was so easy to get Josiah Henson back and all that. There's some backstory missing. But it's hard to get some accurate knowledge. They didn't have the ability to digitize all their events and memoirs and stuff. So who knows what's lost? But this is the story in general. But it was apparently pretty easy for Josiah to go back to Isaac Riley. We don't know if it was a refund, if he bought him back, or what happened financially in that exchange. These two white men, no doubt. Well, could be black men. Remember, before Civil War, we said a while ago there were upwards of 6,000 black slave owners. That's how normalized the institution became. So it's sickly. I kind of attribute the sickliness to the moisture on the East Coast. In Maryland, I grew up on the East Coast where the moisture and humidity just knocks you out. It does something physically. Since I moved to a dry area uh, closer to the Rocky Mountains, my health has stayed better and consistent. So Isaac Riley, he still didn't want to necessarily have Henson. So, he might have been through managing people. It takes energy to be racist, to be a slave owner. Unless you got the management class, which is still alive today. You've got your elite, very a select few, and our politicians use a lot of sound bites and stuff, but they're not really going to go after the financial elite. And then you got a management class. That's another mostly white. You'll see that's stratified um, on skin color, and then a working class um, for labor, hands-on labor, populated by darker skin colors. So Isaac Riley wanted to. He didn't. I get at the idea he didn't want to be a slave owner anymore, but he took Riley back. I mean, he took Henson back, and Riley's made a agreement because Henson has family by now. Time has elapsed. He says, Josiah, if you work for me for 30 years, I'm gonna set your family free. You and your family free. So Josiah does that. So he comes 30 years later, and now Isaac, a little older now, right? He spoke in his youth what he regrets in his later years. He needs some folks around. He's probably not moving. It's 30 years later. Ask me, like I'm in my 50s now. Oh, I'm not jumping around like my early 20s by a long shot. So he balks, he hesitates, and he says, Josiah, if you make too much noise, I'm going to sell your people down the river, right? Remember our story, Uncle Tom's Cabin is in Kentucky, Maryland, some of those northernmost slave states. You made out pretty well as a slave, you know. It's the deeper you went south, it's when things got hard. Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, All right, you're talking deep South, New Orleans. That's where Tom was murdered, right? It's all over, but it's just things get exponentially harder further south you go. Henson doesn't want any part of that. He actually escapes, uses the Underground Railroad, and makes his way. He makes it to Canada with his family. That's pretty impressive. Maryland's closer north. He's not coming from uh, Louisiana or Mississippi trying to make it through. So he, he's in Maryland, one of the northernmost slave states. He crosses over into free America and is probably able to hook up on the railroad and uh, get up north fairly easy. Um, he had some education because he published his story in 1849, which is what and Harriet saw, took it and ran with it and created Uncle Tom's Cabin. The space proper is a historical site. It's in Rockville, Maryland, and um, you know from there that question we got a good segue because we're going to talk. I've been hinting and teasing at it for a couple of days now, but we're going to talk about some real points about and in Uncle Tom's Cabin that are gonna be very important. I came through the book and we hit the Liberator, chapter 44, and I was like, oh, okay, nice story. But then she's got a chapter 45, concluding remarks, so that we're going to start getting into. Take our time going through that because in her concluding remarks, she talks about the reality of this collection of stories. Remember, this was these 40 some chapters were actually 40 episodes in an abolitionist paper that she put out over time, and she collected it into one book, which which was good. She's like the CNN, or she's doing like some great journalism fictionally, but we find out that no, this is real America in her time, where slaves are murdered, where slave masters go back on their word. He's this guy, Isaac Riley. He dangles um, this carrot called freedom in front of Josiah Henson. He doesn't have to build fences, walls, have overseers or anything because his slave is at ease. His slave has freedom on his mind. Just got to wait 30 years, right? The same way you build your IRA, your retirement, and stuff like that. And he's like, it's some kind of insurance. And he's got no reason to mistrust and doubt the white man, right? Uh, but you find that I wrote in the notes, you'll find in the description, click on that, you'll see if you remember the movie Roots or the book Roots, read the book. Books are better than movies. Portion in there where Chicken George, he has his father is his white slave master, so it's his master and his father. So it's so like the Star Wars, Luke, I'm your father type thing. I use some of that imagery, but the point is, you know, his father goes back on his word and holds on to Chicken George. So Chicken George has to get the man drunk. And Chicken George can't read all that well, so he's hoping he grabbed the right paper, which he does, and he flees. Also, this is also what Isaac Riley did, is also reminiscence of meritorious manumission, which maybe happened. Slave was freed from these, um, uh, from observing, whether making, putting the life of their master or a white person ahead of their own, and making white life better, and or informing on other slaves. So you'd enact meritorious manumission, but how many slaves delivered on their part and never got the uh, fulfillment of a promise of freedom or whatever, right? And that's what black people have been doing, that just kind of from the beginning. Keep trusting the system, believe in the system as overall out for our good, and we go work real hard and come up empty-handed. Josiah Henson ran. He left. And that's one thing I'm good at. When the plantation is obviously not serving me, and I wish I had been doing this decades ago. I'm just learning this tool, but if the plantation is not serving me, is not helping me get to the next level, I got to get out of there. I got to leave. Good stuff from Dr. Anderson. Remember Josiah Henson? He is the Uncle Tom we've been talking about. We're going to get tomorrow into. I'm going to prepare some ground for finishing off this last chapter in Harriet Stowe's book. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. It's 365 days towards racial change. We'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging in there.